Welcome to Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. This is a special little edition because Senator Tester is wearing a suit coat and a collared shirt, and he's in Washington, D.C. What is happening?
I don't know. The world's going to hell, man. You show up in DC and I guess you got to figure like you got to dress the part. I don't know. I'm not sure that the orange pullover shirt that I wear on the farm, the
Yeah.
3 or 4 that I have, goes quite as well. But it's all right. My hands are clean today. They're not dirty, and
Wow.
we're
Look at
talking to
that.
we're talking to people, and saw some of my old colleagues last night. I saw Bill Cassidy, and I saw Tammy Baldwin, and I saw Jack Reed and visited with them for a while. Saw Mark Warner, so it was good. Yeah, yeah,
Wow. Wow.
yeah.
Did you talk about any politics or just, the weather?
Uh, with those guys, they were God dang phone. With those guys, with Cassidy and Reed and Baldwin were having a fundraiser, separate fundraisers at a restaurant
Okay.
I was at, and they just happened to be there, so I busted it in uninvitedly and gave all three of them kudos because I like all three of those people very much.
Sure.
And then I saw Warner. I had a beer with Warner, and we talked.
Nice.
Then Warner and I talked some politics. So you know,
All right. Well,
that
I will spare everybody my annoying fanfare about the Minnesota Vikings win over the Bears last night, and we'll talk about
that
some headlines.
that was a hell of a game. I'm just telling you. JJ McCarthy played pretty damn well. You know.
Ooh, yeah, I liked it. I liked
Yeah.
it. Okay, so we got some stuff to talk about, Senator. Remember back in July when the vice president put a post on X that said a Wall Street Journal story about a birthday letter that
Yeah.
the president made for Jeffrey Epstein was bullshit.
Yeah.
And then he asked where the letter is, and then the president sued them for $10 billion because he said the letter was non-existent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
remember all
remember
that?
all
Well,
that.
yeah, so Democrats on the House Oversight Committee came with the receipts yesterday, and they produced this birthday book. And now the White House is denying that, again, that Trump drew the picture, which is a rough outline of a woman's naked body, or that he signed the page. I will say there was also a note from former President Bill Clinton, no accompanying drawing there. There were some other pretty just awful and disgusting images that appeared to just celebrate Epstein's predatory behavior with underage girls. And I will put a link to kind of the full posts, like all of the pages that were released on our Substack later. But what do you make of this?
Well, look, I mean, anybody can forge a signature, I guess, but Donald Trump has a pretty distinct signature. I mean, and I assume it's the signature he uses today was the same one he did whenever he wrote that. Was like 20 years ago, right? When he did that. Yeah, look, I think the whole Epstein thing is repulsive, disgusting, and ridiculous. And I think that truthfully, and I'm in DC, and it's interesting how much Epstein comes up now amongst people I'm talking to. It comes up a lot. In fact, just about every conversation. And there's a lot of reasons why they don't want to release the list, I think. But I think the main reason is just who's on it. I think there's probably some pretty notable people on that list, and they don't want to release it because those are donors to campaigns. That's just my guess. And they ought to release it. The truth will set you free.
Yeah, I think we're not done with the big bombshells related to the Epstein files. Meanwhile, we are seeing a walkback from House Speaker Mike Johnson. He told reporters late last week that the president was once an FBI informant in the Epstein case. That was the first time anyone had ever heard that. And then Speaker Johnson,
Mike Johnson said this?
yeah. Oh, you missed that headline.
Yeah, I missed the headline. And
Okay, okay.
also, what was he? Was he drinking something or what? I mean,
And it
really?
was in the Capitol. He clarified yesterday that Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, and he was willing to help law enforcement. Maybe he didn't get the wording right, but that's like a lot different than being an FBI informant.
Yeah, it's tough to make that mistake without knowing you're making a mistake. But look, these guys are, they're pretty loose with the truth. But I don't know, man. I just it's I don't get it. I mean, they're giving public servants a bad name by just not coming clean and telling the truth. I mean, it just feeds on the lying politician stuff, and it's unfortunate.
But people there are talking about it, like it's come up in your conversations, Epstein?
Epstein absolutely has come up on him. The informant has not come up yet. That's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah.
But hey, this day's still young. But no, Epstein comes up a fair amount as to you know, and I made this statement on a previous podcast or Substack event. People talk about the deep state, and the truth is, I think we may have found it. Because if you're going to protect people by not telling the truth, I don't know, maybe I don't have the definition right, but I think that's part of the deep state.
Yeah. Okay. Supreme Court backed the president again in another emergency request. This is actually the 17th time in a row that they've done this through what's known as the shadow docket. It means it's an urgent decision. They don't always offer an explanation. This time, though, the court is allowing ICE to resume its operations in Los Angeles and basically use racial profiling to target people. A U.S. district judge had stopped the operations based on a lawsuit that said that method violated the Fourth Amendment, which requires law enforcement to have reasonable suspicion before stopping people. Now, this Supreme Court order puts that decision on hold. AG Pam Bondi welcomed the decision. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who happens to be the first Hispanic to serve on the high court, she issued a dissent that said, quote, "We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job." And essentially, she said, Latino Americans really should keep their papers on them at all time now because otherwise they're going to find themselves being detained and questioned.
So you want to know my opinion? Racial profiling is not the direction we should be going as a nation. This is bullshit. If you want to get rid of the criminals and the people who are horrible people, which I'm all about, then go after the criminals. You don't go after them based on the color of their skin or how they talk. That's bullshit. And I'll say one other thing. My kids came back from Indiana here a couple weeks ago to Montana to see their son play football at M-Son. And my son-in-law is Hawaiian, so he looks a little Polynesian. And he went through security at the airport in Indianapolis, and he's wearing shorts and a t-shirt. He looks a little Polynesian. And they said, well, geez, we found something around your privates that we've got to check out. He's wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Okay. And, um, and so my son-in-law said, okay. And I said, we'll take you in the back room. And my son-in-law said, no, if you're going to feel me up, you can feel me up right here in front of everybody, which is what they did. Now, I've got to say that I don't want anybody, I fly Fairmount, and I don't want anybody with a gun or drugs
Yeah.
or explosives getting on an airplane. But this is a little bit fucking ridiculous. I'm just going to tell you. And it's happening, as they said, if it can happen to somebody in LA because of racial profiling, it can happen to you for whatever reason. Maybe you're missing three fingers on your left hand. That's why they're going to pick you up. I don't know, but this is a bunch of shit. The president said he was going to kick out all the thieves and crooks. That's fine. I mean, I support that. But that doesn't mean you go after everybody, no matter what they look like, if they don't, white with blue eyes. This is bullshit. It's just total
Well,
fucking bullshit.
and if they're going to go after the criminals, why are they going to job sites where people are working? Or
I, you know,
courts where people are showing up to follow the law.
yeah, I don't know. I don't
So
know.
there's new.
The upshot of that, by the way, of the thing, they never found anything, of course, and there wasn't even an apology given. Just
Mm,
get going, move on. It's become a lot meaner world over the last 8 months, and it's just not right.
yeah, it is a lot meaner. There's new reporting from NBC that ICE used to have to basically fill out homework like documentation before an operation where they were planning to arrest undocumented immigrants. That was a requirement. Now NBC's reporting that policy is no more. This is according to officials who spoke to the network. And one of the quotes is, "It's hard to fill out a worksheet that just says meet in the Home Depot parking lot."
It's look, transparency in government is important. We'll go back to the deep state if you want. I mean, truth is that they ought to be uh, continue to justify what they're doing. It should be in writing and continue to move forward. Look, I am not. Um, uh, I'm not going to criticize the job that ICE has to do when it comes to getting rid of people who are the criminals out there that are happen to be here, but that they've gone far beyond that, and so justify what you're doing.
Okay, did you see, you didn't see the FBI informant story. Did you see the Apocalypse Now movie poster that the president put out last week? Okay, here we
Geez,
go.
I'm sorry, Reese, you're
You're
making me
striking
feel
out.
pretty inadequate. I
Well,
would
you've
have
been farming and you've been traveling. It's okay.
yeah, sure.
So, so in Chicago, ICE started a new mission that's called Operation Midway Blitz. And this is after this post that the president shared last week. The White House reshared it, and it said, "Shy apocalypse now." And it has him looking like Robert Duvall's character from the movie Apocalypse Now. And it says the caption, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War." Of course, JD Pritzker is not too happy about this.
Yeah, so you got me at a big disadvantage because I never even saw the movie Apocalypse. I can't even say it. Apocalypse Now. Okay, so
Well, you
uh,
never saw Star Wars.
I know I didn't see Star Wars. I've lived a very, very
Sheltered life.
yeah, exactly. So uh, I guess what I would say to that is that this isn't a game. It's not a movie. It's real life. And as a podcast said the other day, we should not be accepting what's going on here as being normal or being out, as being something that's acceptable. This is it's unfortunate. And look, look, the president comes from the entertainment business, and I think a lot of people look at him as an entertainer, not as president. But these are people's lives, and it's not entertainment. It's real. And and you ought to be working with law enforcement at the local level and at the state level. You ought not to be running over the top of them. Look, I'm here in Washington D.C. where the National Guard is, and I'll be honest with you. Everybody I've talked to, I've seen them around the monuments, but they're not in the places where there's high crime. The National Guard, to everybody I've talked to here, said they're not there. They're picking up garbage around the Lincoln Memorial and planting flowers over here and there. Nice guys doing a nice job, probably wondering why they're here. But it's just kind of an interesting time. That's all. Because the truth is that if you really want to make these communities safer, you invest in mental health treatment, which they pulled money out of. You invest in law enforcement training, so you got people on the streets that really understand their job. These guys weren't trained in law enforcement; they're military people, a different job entirely. And and so and plus the cost has got to be. I mean, Doge came in and cut all this stuff, supposedly saved all this money. I guarantee you, the money that they're putting out for the guardsmen is far more than what they would have done if they just hired more cops on the beat.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if it let us know back if you talk to any of the National Guard guys and gals who might be there. Let us know if you talk to them, any of them, what they say.
I might, if I can get some time, I might just stop out and see them. I'm in a very, very safe part of the town, I'm about 3 or 4 blocks from the Hart Building, not far from where I used to live up here, actually. And it's, this place has a lot of policemen, so maybe there isn't many guardsmen here, but it's just kind of crazy. And so, what I would recommend is appreciate and respect the local government and the state government and work with those folks to make their communities safer, because I guarantee you, Governor Pritzker wants to make the state safer, but he wants to do it in a way that doesn't intimidate people, but holds the criminals accountable. And that's what they should be doing.
Yeah, or threatening war. Okay, I know you have to hop. I will save you from one more. Well, no, let's just say it. Like, go Vikings. 1-0. We'll just, let me have my moment because it will end in catastrophic failure for my team by the end of the season. But we are releasing our chat with former Washington Governor Jay Inslee. We're going to talk about some environmental projects he's working on.
So not to bring Seattle Steve back into it, but you and him also have something in common. And he has been a lifelong, very disturbed Vikings fan, from the days of
Steve, your
yeah,
best friend, Steve?
from the days of going to the Super Bowl like 12 years in a row and never winning. Yeah, I mean, he was even a fan then. So it's all good.
We want to welcome to Grounded now former Governor of Washington State, Jay Inslee, who's joined now Climate Power. It's a national organization that aims to protect climate progress and basically build the will for bold climate action. We want to welcome you, Governor. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Taking care of our ground and our topsoil. I appreciate that. Well, he might have been the governor of Washington, but he was also a damn fine congressman.
That's
I'm just
right.
telling
Well, and
you. Yeah.
he told me a story before you hopped on here, Senator, that we need to hear again because it was a good one and it sounded just like something you would say.
Oh, well, this isn't something like somebody from Montana would say. This is actually a true story because in Washington, we tell true stories. So we were walking out at one of the conventions. I think it was LA, as I recall. And it was during the time when a big kerfuffle was made about John McCain and how many houses he had. Remember, he said he had 10 houses. And I made reference to that. And you just said, he said, hell, John McCain has more houses than I have fingers. And I have never forgotten. That was one of the greatest political comments I've ever heard.
Well, it was true.
I know.
I mean, the way it
I
is.
know. I
Just
know.
you gotta accept reality, and I'm 3 digits short. Otherwise, I'd have more fingers than John McCain had.
I hope in your new career here, you're taking care of the last 7 there. I hope you are.
Yeah, I am. Although every once in a while, this one ends up getting in places it shouldn't be. And
Yeah, well,
Oh, no.
you gotta ask your safety coordinator spouse to take care of you on that one. That's for sure.
that's right.
I know
Yeah.
about this stuff. You mentioned I was a congressman, but you didn't know about my real best career. I was an alfalfa grower in Yakima Valley, Washington.
No
That,
shit.
that was my best career. I had 4 acres of some of the finest horse feed in the state of Washington.
So you were raising it for hay, not seed, right?
We were raising it for hay, and it was unkept, and you would have been embarrassed by it because it has so much grass in it. But the horse people like grass in it, so they like
Yeah.
my stuff.
Well,
So
go
that's
ahead.
incredible. I didn't know like that. Wow. That's great.
Yeah, on 4 acres of hay, do you remember what you raised tonnage-wise on each acre? 'Cause
Oh
I
my
bet it's plenty.
gosh. I don't recall what it was, but I doubt it was world class.
I'll
I
bet it
probably
was.
was in the bottom 1% of actual farmer and ranchers.
Yeah, I
So,
don't know about that.
but we got the topsoil. I can show you where the largest, most productive acre is in America for wheat, about 3 miles from downtown Walla Walla, Washington.
No kidding.
I can't remember the number. I want to say 122 or something, what it was. But I've been told it actually is the most productive acre or several acres in the world.
That's
Wow.
So,
Maybe you should move there, Senator.
well,
yeah,
the land value probably reflects that yield, and more, you know?
Well,
could be. It could
Governor,
be.
we were talking before you got on, but I mean, you left office and 3 terms. Great job. You joined Climate Power as part of their new accountability project here, which basically, let me know if I'm wrong about this, to my understanding, aims to be somewhat of a focused deterrent to the president's energy agenda. Is that fair?
Yeah, and we're an accountability project to hold him account for his ruthless effort to shove higher electricity prices down our throats. And that's what he's doing because he's taken out of our production stream the cheapest electricity right now that's available to us, which is wind and solar and advanced batteries. And he's refusing to develop those sources of energy. As a result, we're already experiencing higher electrical prices and obviously the concomitant damage to the atmosphere because of more emissions. And we care about climate change, of course. So we're trying to hold him to account. We're trying to share information with the public in any realm that we can. And that's my job. So I go about in every little megaphone I can find talking about this issue, letting people know what's coming, which is higher electrical rates. You know, the guy says he wants to be dominant in energy, and the first thing he does is cut off several of our least expensive sources of energy. So we got to hold this guy to account.
There's no doubt about that. You know, you served in Congress, and I get a kick out of these people who are always saying, well, we're all the above for energy. We want wind, solar, coal, gas, we want it all. And then when they take away all the wind, all the solar, these guys are crickets and they're actually clapping because that's what they want. They're in the pockets of the coal companies from the beginning. If somebody stands up and says, I'm an all the above guy, look out, grab a hold of your wallet because they ain't an all of the above guy, or they would be pushing for all the above and they don't.
Well, for them, it's all of the above that we own, which is the fossil fuel resources. The other stuff, we weren't referring to all that stuff.
Oh, right
We're
on.
only referring to our stuff. No, it's you know, the Republicans they've changed courses on the issue of climate because you can't deny it now with all the rainstorms and the hurricanes and the forest fires. I'm sitting there looking out here in Seattle. You can't see Seattle because of the forest fire smoke right now. So, you know, they kind of tried to hide from absolute climate denial. Now they just want to say just don't want to do anything about it.
Right.
But their latest talk about an ignorant action. The deal is they trying to say climate change is a positive thing. That's their new argument. Tell that to the people in Texas, for the kids who people lost their kids in those floods.
Yep.
Anyway, we got some work to do.
We've got a lot of work to do because, by the way, and for the listeners of this podcast, so they know, I just walked off a tractor 5 minutes ago. But the downside of all this climate stuff is it's changing weather patterns. And when you change weather patterns, you change food systems. When you change food systems, you put your food security at risk. There's a lot of people to feed on this earth. You screw up the weather, you're going to screw up our food. And there's no doubt about that.
Well, it's already happening in our state. You know, one of the last acts I did as governor is I declared a statewide drought. You know, you think of the Evergreen State as rain. We've had rain kind of all summer. And as a result, we got forest fires and just extreme aridity in our topsoil. We've had damage to our wine industry because the smoke from the forest fires gets on the grapes and then it changes chemically when it's in the barrels. So we're already experiencing in the ag industry some real emerging problems because of this. So guys like you are the first ones going to be victims, actually.
That's exactly right. Farmers are the tip of the spear. There's no doubt about it. No
Yeah,
doubt about it. So are you in all 50 states?
it's a national organization. So I'm on the cable shows, podcasts, op-eds, you name it. And they put me out there to share the scientific information because, you know, wheat farmers and old ex-governors share something. We believe in science, and Trump does not. And so we just share the current actual science with people and just show them how, you know, CO2 is wrapped a blanket around the earth and look what it's doing to us, and just share that science. And, you know, they are so allergic to science. They're allergic to the science of climate change. They're opposed to the science of vaccines. You know, and I was thinking about this morning, our lives are at risk on this. This guy's costing people's lives when you reject science.
That's
And they're
right.
doing it. They're doing it across. It's kind of a common theme, which is a rejection of science. Trump must have got a F in some chemistry class or something that teed him off. I don't know what happened to that guy.
Well, I was just going to say, sometimes science is tough. I mean, sometimes when you look at the science, you go, Jesus, I got to change my ways, otherwise shit's going to go upside down here pretty quick. And so you just deny it and just keep doing what you're doing. And then who gives a shit, you know?
That's
As
why I
somebody
want you
else
to watch
said,
that
don't
movie,
worry,
Senator.
we're all going to die anyway, you know?
I want him to watch the movie, Don't Look Up, because that's what it's all about. And there's a reason that Al Gore called it an inconvenient truth. It is inconvenient. It stinks. We don't want this. But I want to ask you about this new report from Climate Power. And like you said, it shows that household electric bills are already up 10%. And you're saying it's poised to spike higher. So my question for you is, like, how do you translate that to the voters? How do you translate that 64,000 jobs have already been lost or stalled in the clean energy sector since Trump took office? How do you translate those numbers in a way that the voters understand, so they say, "Oh, no, no, that's going to affect me, that's going to affect my livelihood, that's going to affect my bank account. I need to do something about this."
Well, more and more people have somebody who's a family member who could or do have a job in the clean energy industry. My neighbor's kid's working on a wind company project. So the jobs are the most obvious thing that we're losing by the literally hundreds of thousands because of this. But the cost is something. Not everybody has a job in the clean energy industry, but almost everybody's got an electrical bill. And so everybody in the United States is now facing a higher electrical bill because of three forces that are all combining to really stick these higher prices down our throats. Number one, we have this incredible increased demand for electricity because of artificial intelligence and new data centers. I actually don't know in Montana how many of these data centers are, but they're springing up all over Washington State and the United States. And these things are voracious when it comes to electricity. So we're going to have something like a 20, 30% increase. Don't hold me to a specific number of the electrical demands just from that part of the industry, forgetting the growth of the United States. That's number one. Number two, you have a president who is bound and determined to shut off uh, 90% of the cheapest electricity in the United States, which is solar, wind, and advanced batteries. And he literally is doing everything possible to flip the circuit breaker and turn it off. Well, when you have this huge new demand for electricity and you have a guy who wants to shut off major parts of the production facility, 90% of Americans know what's going to happen. Prices are going to go up. And that's happening at the same time. The third part of the real threat is the climate change associated with, burning coal. So there's three things hitting us. Trump's responsible for a major part of them. And it is so contrary to his sort of America first provision. We should be developing these technologies, not just China. He's given these industries to China and Korea. And, I'd like to be dominant, but you can't be dominant when you refuse to allow the development of the industry. That's what's going on. So hold on to your hats. He said he wanted to tame inflation. And the very first thing he does is try to increase it by denying us access to clean energy. I'm not very happy about that.
And rightfully so. But I'm going to tell you, whether it's energy, whether it's healthcare, whether it's doesn't matter. Whether it's peace versus war, he says one thing and he does exactly the opposite, and it happens every day. Now, that's a hell of a statement to make, by the way, because nothing happens every day, but this happens every day with this guy in the administration. They've got an agenda. I don't know, other than 2025, I don't know what their agenda is, but it doesn't make America great again. It does just the opposite.
Well, it makes some of his financial contributors and his cronies stuff their pockets. That's when he's talking about make America great again. He's talking about his billionaire buddies that financed his campaign, and now
Yeah.
he's spreading around all kinds of goodies to those who've supported him, and he's intentionally wounding. I mean, when does an American president think it's their job to put people out of work, kill new technologically oriented industries, and send that work overseas? That should not be in his job description, and yet that is what he's doing. But you're
That's
right
right.
on the truth aspect. I mean, I kind of galls me that the papers will say, today Trump said X. They should say Trump lied again about Y. That's what they should be saying. That'll that'll just lean into it.
Yeah,
But
for
we're
sure.
holding him to account.
That's right.
I wanted to ask you, sorry, Senator, I keep steamrolling you.
Well, all I was going to say is somebody's got to hold an account because Congress sure and shit isn't. Go ahead.
Well, as soon as we can do it is next November, and hopefully we're going to be ready next November. That's our job.
Hopefully, we'll have an election that actually is an election.
Yeah.
So, Governor, in Montana, we saw this landmark lawsuit in Held v. Montana. That's that group
Yes.
of young kids. They sued the
Yes.
state for not considering climate impacts in environmental reviews. They won. But now there's a new federal case, and it's actually directly challenging President Trump's executive orders, both expanding fossil fuel development, getting rid of climate solutions. And they're kind of basing it on three main points, which is going against Fifth Amendment rights to life and liberty, but also that he doesn't have the authority. And then lastly, that it violates the duty to protect citizens. So we're in a new world. We're in a different world than we were when the kids in Montana won. What do you predict will happen in this federal case?
Well, I predict we're going to fight like hell to preserve the existing law. It's easy to forget the existing law that protects us because the existing law, duly passed by Congress, signed by his predecessors, the clean air laws of the United States require under existing law, even without it some additional constitutional challenge, for the federal government to protect our air that we breathe. That's an existing obligation. And we are going to fight like hell to prevent them from ignoring that existing obligation. Now they're trying to do it, as you know, because they're trying to eliminate a thing called the endangerment finding. The endangerment finding was a scientific conclusion that every reputable scientist knows is true, which is this pollution harms humans. You can't argue against it. We got asthma, we got lung cancer, we got heat stroke, we got floods, we got hurricanes, we got forest fires, you name it. We've got it because of this fossil fuel pollution. And they're trying to eliminate the science of that by simply saying Donald Trump could eliminate the laws of physics. That just won't wash. So that's going to be going to the Supreme Court. But it is going to be difficult for them to go along with Trump on this because it's damn hard to argue that when you're choking on pollution, your kids can't breathe because of asthma, and your forest is burning down and you can't see to the next block because of fires, and the rainstorms hit and wash away your town, to stand up and say this is not a problem. They're going to be hard pressed to do that. So this existing lawsuit, even before the ones the kids started, we ought to win, hands down. I hope that that's the case. Then you get to the constitutional issues, the illegal taking that this lawsuit brings up, and that could end up in the Supreme Court as well. That's a more sweeping obligation. It's less concrete because it's not based on existing statute. But I think first we got to win the endangerment finding, because that will essentially, if Trump was allowed to get away with this highway robbery, eliminate the federal government's ability to really take meaningful action against this pollution. So I'm hopeful that we win that. We should.
Well, Governor, not to be too flippant here, but you obviously haven't heard that when we quit vaccinating everybody, asthma is going to go away.
Well, and everybody's going to look like a Hollywood movie star too, and have big biceps, and it's going to be a wonderful life. Yeah, I can't believe you were ever vaccinated with a physique like that. I mean,
I'll tell you
looks
what,
all,
man,
looks all. There was
this
always
is
talk. There's always talk about whether that was all natural, John, or not. Because
yeah. There's probably a lot of drugs involved, but I'm going to just tell you
yeah,
right now, Jay, this happened totally by accident. This incredible physique,
yeah.
Ritza will like this. My mother used to call my father a Greek god, and then after they were married for 5 years, she called him a goddamn Greek. I mean,
You know
what it
what?
is. It's just-
My dad has used that line. My dad has used that line.
John, I was let me brag about something. I was the legislator who passed the first bill in America outlawing the use of steroids for athletic enhancement purposes in 1999
It's a
in
good move.
in Washington State. And I thought about applying that to the US Senate, but I thought, what would that do to John Tester? That will bring him down. So I decided not to bring it to the Senate.
What I wished I would have done as a senator that I didn't do is I wished I would have made reading the Constitution required reading by the people who serve at the House and the Senate.
Well, anyone
They
can
would,
read it. Understanding it's different.
Yeah.
they would choke on it. You know, the guys who this is interesting actually. I called Chris Murphy the other day just to give an attaboy a few months ago because he was one of the early guys being aggressive on this push against Trump's anti-democratic efforts. And he said that he really decided to do this like last, you know, August, a year ago, because he read the books written by the architects of Project 2025. And he said he came to the realization these guys don't believe in democracy. They think it's an artifact of history. It doesn't fit in the internet age, and we just need to go to an authoritarian form of government. And he said once he understood how serious they were about getting rid of democracy, he knew the stakes involved. And they're playing that playbook of every authoritarian has ever taken over democracy. So that's why I'm encouraging everybody to really be aggressive. And I wrote an op-ed 2 months ago calling out these law firms that took a dive and kissed the ring. You can't preserve democracy if people are just rolling over like that.
So the tech people were in yesterday, or was it today? I don't remember.
Last night, I think.
Yeah.
Last night.
Yeah.
And, they learned pretty well from Zelensky. You don't go in and tell the president the truth, because if you do,
Right.
he'll rip your face off. You walk in and you tell him how wonderful he is, even if it's total bullshit. And you know what? I got to tell you, those guys are smarter than that, and they're better than that. They're good business people, but damn it, you got to tell the truth. You don't tell the truth, you end up in the sewer with all the rest of the liars, and that's a fact.
My view is you either hang together or hang separately when it comes to losing democracy. And you lose democracy not William Douglas had a good line. He says, democracy is kind of like the evening. It doesn't just come down like a curtain. It gets a little darker and it gets a little darker and it gets a little darker. And that's
Yep.
why we got to get every institution, universities, corporations, think tanks, nonprofits, all to say, we're not giving an inch to this guy. Otherwise, it's going to be gone. And so I'm trying to argue that people, both for their ultimate self-preservation and for the nation's benefit, to stand up and resist, even if it's difficult. And
So
frankly, I was madder than hell to see all those CEOs, including some from my state, going and kissing the ring.
Yep.
This is a guy. Some of these guys have been really good philanthropists. They've cured all kinds of diseases. They're feeding people. This guy cut out the entire aid program in the United States,
Yep.
and thousands of children are starving right now because of that.
Yep.
And these guys go out and have tea with him or white wine on the rose garden that he paved.
Governor, I want to ask you about that because I know you have friends still in office, and I'm wondering what you're hearing about these rumblings that I'm hearing about, kind of these closed door backroom chats amongst Democratic state leaders trying to figure out like how they're going to combat federal troops possibly being sent to their state, how they're going to combat some of these policies with the powers that they have at the state level. What are you hearing about those plans?
Well, I don't hear anything a lot more than you've heard publicly, but you see our good Democratic governors from Pritzker to Newsom to points beyond get into court as soon as possible and get whatever appropriate relief to prevent the abuse, not only of the law, but of these guards people. What are they going to keep these guardsmen out of their personal lives for the next 3 years? These are insurance agents and teachers, and they have another life. And he's taking them out of their life. Is he going to keep them in the streets of Chicago for the next 3 years? So this is more of a temporary, I think, publicity ploy than a long-term effort, because I don't know how you'd sustain it without breaking the National Guard to start with. But what they're doing is what they should do, which is get into court and beat him. So there was a decision, I think it was today or yesterday, arguing that there was a violation of the Posse Comitatus Act. I didn't read the case, but I read the headline, which does not allow, by and large, armed services to be used for domestic law enforcement for good reason. We didn't build the military to use it against citizens. So there's already been one decision stopping some of that behavior. But he may be able to get people, to walk around to say that they're protecting a federal courthouse. I suspect ultimately courts will rule that they can do that, but it's not a long-term solution to these issues. I do believe we need additional law enforcement on the streets, though. We need it in my state. I fought for additional appropriations so we can get some more cops on the beat. We don't have enough personnel. I don't know about Montana, but we don't in Washington. So it is legitimate to try to have some additional resources.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, those resources have been cut, and mental health resources have been cut, adding to the problem while he puts National Guard troops on the ground and making claims that are not true either. But that's the tradition. That's what he does.
Well, he's cut, at the time he's got people in camo walking around, he's cut hundreds of millions of dollars from true anti-crime efforts of intervention, like you said, mental health intervention. And he's cut hundreds of millions of dollars that the cops rely upon when they've got somebody in a mental health crisis. They got to have help to get them off the street.
Yep.
So it's not a long-term solution. It's more of a publicity stunt. A lot of it's illegal, and I'm proud of my Democratic governors. That's why I hope it's Tester in 28 for Governor of Montana. I'm still plugging for that, but I haven't talked to John about this yet. But
And so as long as we're going down this road, let's go down this road. Are you done with electoral politics, or you got your eye on something else?
I would be shocked if I'm running for anything other than the president of the Bainbridge Rotary annual auction. That's as far as my aspirations are at the moment.
Senator Tester's going to run for HOA president.
There you go. There you go. No, that's too tough. Don't do that, John. I recommend against that.
Yeah, but I don't live there, so it's okay.
My HOA, not his. Mine.
Yeah, I can make stupid ass decisions that affect her, and they don't. I don't live there, so it doesn't matter.
Well, we both.
I think as long as we're talking about electoral politics, I think you haven't toyed with the idea of maybe running for president, because I think that's where the next president's coming from, is the governor mansion.
No, I haven't. I've eliminated that as a possibility. I feel good about the talent pool that we have, actually. We got a handful of great governors, a couple senators in the mix. I actually feel good about that we're going to find a good candidate. And so I'm optimistic about this. I know many of them, and they've each got real talent. And I'm kind of partial to governors because it's that executive experience comes in handy, I suppose. So I feel good. I think we're going to have a good outing. We came off a rough stretch, roughest ever out of the last debacle, but that's not going to be replicated. So I feel good about it. And when it gets time, you should call me and I'll tell you how great it is being governor. You'll find out. It's a great gig.
I mean, I wouldn't know what to do if I had my own airplane. I mean,
Here's the thing. Every episode, someone asks for him to run for governor or president. So you're going to have to fight the Tester for president people.
I'd be flying between Flathead Lake and down Dive, and hell, it'd be too good to be true. So might as well not go there.
It's a great, your experience and mine. We both had great opportunities to serve, and we each enjoyed it, I think.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of talent out in that pool, though. So I feel good about that.
Yep. And I always say that there should be some younger talent than a guy that's 72, 73 years old to run for governor. But
we want to thank you so much. How can people learn more about the work you're doing and get involved if they want to?
Well, Climate Power, just go to the Climate Power site. And I encourage people to do that. it's been a very effective organization because it's going everywhere, not just in the sort of blue cities. We talk to communities, rural, ag, whatever, and I think it's very important. And it's important because they're receiving so much disinformation at the moment. People are just deluged in deceit and lies about this coming from the Trump administration. Most recently were it used to be the Environmental Protection Agency, now it's the Environmental Pollution Agency. And now you got the whole federal government trying to spread disinformation. So information is important on this. And I really like this outfit.
It's all good. Well,
Yeah,
thanks for being.
it's climatepower.com. Check it out. And don't forget to vote.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds good to me. Well, thank you. All the best to you, my friend, and keep up the good work. Okay.
Thanks, John.
Now
Come
that
out and see
you're
our come out and see our good topsoil one of these days.
and you
I
come
am.
see us. You come see us in Montana too, Governor, now that you're
I love Montana. I love Sweetgrass Ranch up in the crazy mountains, and I love it all. It's a great state.
So it's all good. Well, you're always welcome, and I am going to be in Seattle before you know it, and I'm going to look you up. Okay,
Ooh,
Give me a call. I'll show you a good time.
I'll do it.
All
thanks.
right. Thanks, friends. Be well.
You bet.
You
Take
too.
care.
Every time we talk on one of these podcast episodes, someone's trying to get you to run for something.
Yeah. Yes. It's just, a lot of people that have poor choice and judgment,
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to tell you, we got to start teaching people how to think more critically.
Good idea. Good idea. And you're not even wearing a hat. I can't even ask you about your hat because you're like Mr. Professional in DC this week.
Yeah, I've got a hat. It's at the hotel room, and I should have put it on. But next week.
Yeah.
So,
Next week.
yeah.
Hey, next week we have a really big live Substack we're planning. I don't know
Yeah.
if you have heard of Aaron Parnas, but he is a pretty big deal on social media in the news influencer space. And we have a live show coming up next Wednesday. Very excited about that. And other than that, man, it just feels like it's busy right now. You're in DC for the
It
rest
is.
of the week. We're going to try to fit in
Yeah.
another show.
Yeah, it is pretty busy, but just so you know, I have heard of Aaron Parnas, Maritza, and you know why?
Why?
Because you told me about him. Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's good. So it's
Because
good.
you're so active on social media.
I'm a social media horse is what they call me.
Social media butterfly. One thing that we didn't talk about at the beginning of the episode, as you pointed out, is our episode with Jasmine Crockett.
Yeah, it was interesting conversation. I got to tell you, and she's I don't really care what anybody says. She's incredibly smart and incredibly focused, and it'd it's always a lot of fun to watch her in these committees because it's she's got a sense of humor to it, and but yet she's hard hitting, and she is hard hitting. You agree with the politics, not agree with the politics, that really doesn't matter. She's pretty damn sharp, and
And I
it's pretty
just
cool.
saw that she's appointed to this next iteration of the January 6th committee. She's one of the Democrats they've
Oh, no
appointed.
kidding.
So yeah, I
Well,
will be interested to see her work her magic on that one. We got a lot of it was funny. I was at Hamilton, the movie on Friday night, and I started to get notes from people, "Hey, you guys were just on Fox News? You're on Breitbart? You're on the Daily Caller?" And I was like, "What?" And so I looked and they didn't give you or I any love, but they sure went after our friend Representative Jasmine Crockett.
yeah, they don't much like her, but that's okay. That's the way it is. Can't raise in hell unless you're pissing people off. So it's good.
That's right. Good trouble, as John Lewis said.
Yeah.
Okay, we wanna thank our guests from today, former Washington Governor Jay Inslee, for joining us to talk about his work with Climate Power. And we want to thank all of you, our listeners. You can find us on Blue Sky, Instagram, Substack, YouTube. And we want to thank our friends at Pearl Jam for letting us use their music.
Tally ho, folks.